Black Vaudeville. We have accomplished what no other Negro has done, to successfully run a Negro show without the help of a single white man. Black Vaudeville was Black America's contribution to our style of vaudeville entertainment, by us and for us, that excited audiences from the early 1880s until the early 1930s. There was no shortage of talented dancers, singers, and musicians in the community. The challenge was organizing a business to manage and promote tours to venues desiring to see them. Pat Chappelle, born in 1869, was that man. He paved the way for Black entertainers under the tutelage of his showbiz uncle, Julius C. Chappelle. In 1898, Chappelle organized his first traveling show, the Imperial Colored Minstrels. Chappelle became quite famous with his touring show, A Rabbit's Foot. This cast of 60 performers and staff were comfortable, traveling at a time when Blacks could not rent a hotel room. He provided accommodations on their own train, with a new diner and sleeping cars that were well finished, like a palace on wheels. Touring shows were typically seen under tents, as halls were segregated and unavailable to Black promoters. In the summer of 1900, Chappelle expanded shows into theaters rather than perform under tents. Presenting as the Chappelle Brothers, Pat, James, and Lewis dominated the Chitlin circuit, and by 1902 had full control over the Black vaudeville business in that part of the country. By 1904, the Rabbit's Foot show had expanded to fill 3 Pullman railroad carriages and was advertised as the leading Negro show in America. The Hyers sisters, Anna and Emma, born 1855 and 1857, were the first Black women to perform on the vaudeville stage in 1876. They performed until the 1920s and were pioneers of Black musical theater. The Hyers pushed the boundaries of what was deemed acceptable performances by Black and female artists. Born prior to the Civil War, the Hyers developed acts that defied Black stereotypes that were pervasive in American life. From very early ages, their parents provided piano lessons and vocal training. The talented duo achieved well enough to make their professional stage debut in April 1867 at ages 9 and 11. They mastered the stage at Sacramento's Metropolitan Theater before a reported audience of 800. Anna sang soprano and Emma sang alto tenor. The Hyers family organized a theater company in 1870s. They began their first transcontinental tour in 1871 under their father's management. The sisters were more than singers. They performed theatrical productions. They produced the first full-fledged musical plays. They had at least 6 shows between the late 1870s and 1880s. The Hyers were called a rare musical treat. During the early 1900s, vaudeville blues was created by Black musical geniuses, delightfully and exclusively for Black audiences. This allowed Blacks to open clubs, theaters, and dance halls as the only ones providing this type of entertainment. Somewhat racy by then standards, the singers wrote and sang about life experiences. Vaudeville blues singers were the first black music commercially recorded. Singer Mamie Smith recorded Crazy Blues in 1920 and sold 75,000 copies in its first month. There were many outstanding blues performers, mostly women. Ida Cox, born in 1896, was known for her blues performances and recordings and was billed as the uncrowned queen of the blues. Mamie Smith, born 1891, was a singer, dancer, and pianist and actress on the vaudeville stage. She sang jazz and blues and made blues history as the first black artist to make a vocal blues recording. Mamie Brown was an actress and singer who was vice president of the National Association of Negro Musicians. Ma Rainey, born in 1886, was one of the earliest black professional blues singers and one of the first generation of blues singers to record. She was billed as the mother of the blues. Bessie Smith, born 1894, was nicknamed the Empress of the Blues and was the most popular female blues singer of the 1920s and 1930s. Vaudeville had amazing crossover artists who performed for black and white audiences. While vaudeville was predominantly run by white-owned and promoted shows, they allowed a limited number of black, Asian, Italian, and other ethnic performers. They allowed them as patrons, but immigrants and blacks were confined to separate viewing areas away from the whites. Black stars were sought by white vaudeville producers and billed alongside white stars. Matilda Sisteretta Joyner Jones, known as the Black Patty, performed in areas that were previously exclusively white, including Carnegie Hall. The name was given in comparison to Adelina Patti, an acclaimed Italian opera singer. Jones' fine soprano voice earned her international success for classical opera performances in the United States, Africa, Australia, and Europe. She performed for 4 consecutive presidents, from Harrison to Roosevelt. Bert Williams, an immigrant from the Bahamas, began as a vaudeville comedian in blackface, playing coon acts and roles. Despite studying civil engineering at Stanford, Williams left academia to become one of the biggest names among black entertainers. The Whitman sisters, said to have been the highest paid performers on the black vaudeville circuit. They were daughters of an AME minister who trained and managed their early career. Mabel, Elsie, Alberta, and Mary were wildly popular as singers and dancers. They formed a touring company and were known as the royalty of Negro vaudeville. It was written that they performed for King George V. Sherman Dudley, like many vaudeville performers, got his start in minstrel shows, gaining fame with a famous comedy act involving a trained mule that appeared to understand speech by nodding when spoken to. He wrote a play, The Smart Set, which was first performed in 1896 and closed production in favor of concentrating on the development of the black vaudeville circuit. A is for Ada. Ada Overton Walker, born in 1880, was known as the Queen of the Catwalk Dance. She stood apart as a vaudeville performer, actress, singer, dancer, choreographer, and crusader for women in her very short 34 years. She was the wife of vaudevillian great George Walker, and together with performing partner Bert Williams reached the highest levels of achievement. Ada began performing at age 15 and was a chorus member with the Black Patty Troubadours. But her acclaim came primarily from performing with Walker and Williams, who were prolific authors of vaudeville musical productions. In the 1910s, she was described by critics as the best Negro comedienne today and the most fascinating and vivacious female comedy actress the Negro race has ever produced. In 1903, the threesome had a command performance at Buckingham Palace on the invitation of King Edward VII, who transformed them into international stars. In 1904, after 2 seasons in England touring with Indoharmony, the group returned to New York. Ada was cast as lead in Oscar Hammerstein's 1912 revival of Salome at the Victoria Theater in New York. She refused being stereotyped into what role she played or who she worked with. Ada was hired as a solo dancer and choreographer for Bob Cole, Joe Jordan, and J. Rosamond Johnson. She told the Colored American magazine in 1905, "I venture to think and dare to state that our profession does more toward the alleviation of color prejudice than any other profession among colored people." Mr. Black Vaudeville, Bill Bojangles Robinson, born in 1878. In 1989, Congress designated Robinson's birthday, May 25th, as National Tap Dance Day. He was acclaimed the best-known and most highly paid Black entertainer in America during the first half of the 20th century. Robinson began his career at an early age in minstrel shows. He was a hit with his winning combo of tap dancing, acting, and singing. From there to vaudeville and the Chitlin circuit. Later, his signature routine was the stair dance, in which he would tap up and down a set of stairs in a rhythmically complex sequence of steps, a routine that he unsuccessfully attempted to patent. He coined the term copacetic. From vaudeville to Broadway, wooing fans black and white. In the 1930s, he starred with Adelaide Hall on Broadway in Brown Buddies. Doors opened and Robinson became a star in the recording industry, Hollywood films, radio, and television. Robinson was a popular figure in both the black and white entertainment worlds of his era. He made a name for himself starring in Harlem is Heaven with U.B. Blake Orchestra. He starred in the musical Stormy Weather, 1943, with Lena Horne and Cab Calloway. The film was selected for preservation in the National Film Registry. Robinson used his popularity to challenge and overcome numerous racial barriers. He was one of the first minstrel and vaudeville performers to appear without the use of blackface makeup, one of the earliest black performers to go solo, overcoming vaudeville's two-colored rule of only 2 black performers in a show. He headlined Broadway shows, the first black performer to appear in a Hollywood film, in an interracial dance team, when he tapped with child star Shirley Temple in a series of films during 1930s. Black Vaudeville. adding to the long legacy of Black contributions in music and beyond.